and displacement. So you can see like a pretty drastic change. This was in one shot. You know, how happy would your clients be? Give me some hearts in there if your clients would be happy if you can get them 9 levels of lift in one shot. Because especially with brunettes, you know, I think we go in, you know, just really kind of having to like, kind of just setting ourselves up for success by being like, listen, it's gonna take a couple times. This isn't gonna happen in one shot. But I think with the new high riser, you're able to get those 9 levels of lift immediately, and you don't have to, you know, worry about the integrity of the hair getting compromised because the lightener is already pre-bonded. So that's going to, you know, also, you know, preserve the integrity of the hair while you're going through those 9 levels of lift. And that's really important because, again, I always tell my brunette clients, like, I could force it, but when I burn your hair off, you're not going to be happy. So I'd rather do it in stages, but this allows us to kind of just get from A to B faster without really compromising the hair. So mixing ratios. I have 2 bowls here. So one is going to be for the hairline, and one is going to be for the rest of the hair. So when you're doing brunettes, my strategy has always been go stronger with the developer. So I'm going to be using 40 volume for the majority of the highlights. And I know a lot of people are scared using 40, but trust me, when you're dealing with dark hair, dark levels that want to be light, it's going to help you. And because we're going to be really strategic with our placement, and we're going to be moving relatively fast, you don't really need to worry about this. And trust me, you really need this extra strength to get you there. Now you can see the mixing ratio, it creates a pretty thick consistency. I found with using this, I've been mixing it, they're recommending it 1-to-1, but I've been putting 1 scoop with 1¼ ounces of developer. I might even put a drop more in there, just because I wanted to be able to be movable. So let's say like 1¼ maybe max 1½ per scoop. And that's gonna give you a nice texture and consistency that you can work with. And you have to remember, like, the thicker it is, the stronger the lightener is gonna be. So you don't wanna go too loose. And the reason I'm doing a second bowl with the 20 volume is because with the hairline, the heat from the scalp is gonna be activating more. So I'll go into that a little more once we get to that part. So now you can see just with the model right here, you know, you see a strong face frame, but you can also see, I didn't put a lot of highlights at the root area. Now, the main reason I don't do that on my darker haired clients is because you end up with a lot of zebra effect. So before you even have to like go in, highlight, go in shadow root, I just kind of just leave it and focus more on mids and ends, and that's gonna give more what a brunette is gonna want. Plus, if you lift the hair up, you see there's all this dark in here. You need that negative space. That negative space, again, on a brunette, it's gonna let these highlights really pop and appear even lighter than they even are. And you know, like I said, we don't need a ton. I'm gonna go through this like super quickly. So by sectioning the hair, first we're gonna start in the back. And we're gonna just divide it from ear to ear. And let me just clip some of this hair away. Let me clip that to show you guys my sectioning, just so you guys, you know, if you guys are wanting to work along with me. So you see I went from ear to ear. So we're working for this full back section here. And we're gonna start by, let's start with the back here. And just split this in half as well. Since we've already done the half, I'm just gonna show you the 1/2 here. All right, now you're gonna take a relatively large section, because with brunettes, like I said, we don't need a zillion highlights to get a lot of impact. So we're gonna start almost like, I would say like right around the middle of the ear. Take this entire section right here, and we are going to back comb this. I like to do a lot of back combing, especially for my brunettes, and especially in these nape areas, because you cover a lot of area. And what I like about it is that when you do this, number one, you can charge for a full highlight, but when that client pulls that hair forward, she sees lightness there. She's not seeing these dark bits, but you're keeping that depth and the contrast in the nape. So for me, that's really important. It gives the hair, you know, that contrast, that dimension, and it's really what, you know, think that's the key. Like for me, like going in there and spending hours in the nape area is pointless, especially on a brunette, because like that's not where the hair would naturally lighten. It's not. She doesn't see it. No one else really sees it. Why spend a lot of time? I focus on when she looks in the mirror, what does she see, and what's important. All right, so we got this first section, and you can see you want it to be, you know, fine enough that you can get lift, but not so thin that you get, you know, you want to have a strong enough piece here. So you want to just, let me just back up it a little bit more. And when you're doing these teases, you want to back comb it as tight as possible to the scalp. Because again, the more space you have, you know, to highlight, the tighter you're going to get it to the scalp. But the reason we do the back combing is that you're pushing out all the old growth and all the newer growth, and you're leaving the older growth to highlight. So now we're going to go in there and I'm going to paint V shapes. Now the reason we do these V shapes is that it creates a soft blended demarcation line. Now I know some people just go in, you know, they go straight across, but if you go in straight across, then you're going to get a hard line, and then you have to go back in and tone, and then you are going to need to, you know, do a lot of extra work. Plus, you know, I find that, you know, with the toning, especially on brunettes, you know, it fades relatively fast. So the less corrective stuff you got to do after, the better it's going to be. So for those of you that are tuning in, yes, I see some of the questions. Yes, I'm using the Matrix High Riser. It's their new lightener. It's the most powerful one that we have. 9 levels of lift in one shot. It's pre-bonded, and so it's going to really kind of give you that maximum lift. It's great for universal lightening, but I love it especially for my darker levels because it just gets me where we need to get. It gives them the results that the clients want. And you know, you saw our first little section. I went in with this V shape, and with the V shapes, again, like I said, we want them to, because it's going to give you a softer blend. And then I don't have to go back in, correct stuff, soften things. It's already done. So we're starting with that first section. And you saw I took a pretty big chunk there, but trust me, you are going to get a lot of impact just from doing this. Now I'm going in and I'm going to place another foil right on top of it. The main reason for that is because we don't want any spotting. You know, because we're doing that V shape, you've got some negative space in there. So if you just flipped it up, you're going to spot that area. So we've got this first section. Now we're going to go above. Leave a negative space in there. Take just this top corner now. Okay? We're going to leave all this in here. We want, you know, with brunettes, you want negative space. You want to have contrast. You want to have dimension. It's so important. I think that's the mistake I think a lot of people, when they're highlighting dark hair, is they just, like I said, you guys stick a million highlights everywhere and then the hair just looks orange. Where if you're leaving a lot of that negative space, the highlights that you do have, they really pop. They really give you, you know, they have that appearance of being lighter. And because we're going to be super strategic with it, this is where brunettes would naturally highlight. So next one, elevate it away from the head. And again, we're going to back comb it into a fine slice here. And we're going to do a smaller V shape in this one. All right, so I want to make sure I'm not missing any questions. If you guys have any questions about while I'm working, please feel free to ask. All right, so again, we're doing like a V shape, but this time we're going to go a little bit smaller. And you want to make sure you put a good amount of product on there. You want to make sure all of this is very much saturated. And when you're doing this, you know, be tight, especially at the top of your V. You want to make sure there's a sharp corner. If you do a big heavy blob up there, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get a big heavy blob. So, you know, these are all things that you have to think about when you're working. You know, it's like an attention to detail and meticulousness. So we're going to go in. We've got our second V. And if the hair is really long, use a second foil. You know, put that underneath. You know, you want to extend the hair again. You want to make sure it's all saturated. Swirling it at the bottom is going to give you uneven lift. But you can see we did now our second V. So now, I know it doesn't seem like, you know, is that all the foils we're putting in the back? Yeah, so you're only going to get 4. So 4 foils and you just finish the back on a brunette. Seems like pretty time efficient for me. But look at the result we get. This is literally just 2 foils in the back. And look how much dimension you got. Look how much contrast you got. Look how much lift we got. That's literally, this is a quarter of the back of the head. This is the other quarter. And I did it with 2 foils. So give me some hearts if you guys are into that, where it's like you're working really smart, you're getting very strategic highlights, you're getting a lot of contrast and a pop. So that's really the key with my brunettes. So we got the back done. So, we do the same on the other side. So you do these 2 and 2 more. So we got 4 there. And now let's work in the front. Now with brunettes, those money pieces, are also, they're popular, but too many times I have people that are coming in from other salons, and especially brunettes, and those money pieces are like way too harsh and they're way too strong. So again, with brunettes, you need to have a different approach. I like having that brightness. When they pull their hair back, I love having a little bit of the dimension there, but you have to work in a very different way than you would with a blonde. So what we're gonna do is we are going to start with some very, very delicate baby lights on the hairline. And now for the hairline, I'm dropping the developer down. I told you in the back, we did it with 40 volume. With brunettes, I typically like to do this, especially if we're not dealing with virgin color. Artificial color is gonna need that extra power to break through. But for the hairline, I'm gonna drop it down in half. So whatever developer I'm using in the back, I drop it in half. So with this one, I am gonna be going down to 20 volume. And there's 2 reasons for that. Number one, the hair is much more fine and delicate on the hairline, so it's gonna lift much faster. The second thing is, when that foil's sitting on our face, there's heat. There's heat coming off that. So you want that heat. It's gonna speed up the lightening process. So we're going to, go, much lighter with the developer there. Now with, let me see if there's any, okay. So the first piece, because it's a doll head, you have to kind of have imagination here, but that first section that we're gonna do, I want you guys on that, there's a lot of baby hairs typically on clients. So you're gonna take the finest, most see-through, barely any hair in it. That's gonna be your first slice. And then we're gonna do a weave on it. But I'm talking for brunettes, it needs to be barely any hair there. I honestly want such little hair because anything too strong on a brunette around the face is gonna look like screaming at you. So we just wanna whisper. We want a soft, delicate highlight there. So let's go very, very soft, very, very delicate. Like I'm talking make sure you guys, I don't even want to hear it. I'd be like, what? What was that highlight? What? Yes, that's how we're doing it. Barely even there. So super fine. Again, it's a mannequin head, so it's gonna feel thicker here. But you're gonna do this one, is gonna be your first baby fine slice. And like I said, we're using the 20 volume on this one. And you're gonna take this all the way up to the root. So the first one's gonna be super fine, like I said, baby, and you're gonna highlight this one to the root. All right. Now, from there, the first, a lot of brunettes, if the brunette's hair is stronger hair in the front and it's a thicker, strands of hair, one might be enough. But if she has a lot of baby hairs, which typically I would say the majority of the clients do have a lot of short baby hairs, you're gonna wanna go in and do a second foil right behind this one. And so again, keep them both barely there, super, super delicate. Let's assume she's got a stronger hairline here, so we're gonna just do it. But if you guys wanna see a second one, we can do it. But so we got that first one in here. So like I said, if the hairs, there's a lot of short baby hairs, do 2, longer hairs, just 1. Now, let's go into the money piece. Now these are important. I'm gonna have 2 things that are big take home tips for you guys. Number one, like I said, I do very, very minimal toning in the salon, and whatever toning I do, it's gonna be, I don't want it to be gone in 2 weeks, because if your hair looks crazy when I bleached it, trust me, no matter which toner you use, in a couple of weeks it's gonna fade out, and then it's gonna look crazy. And one of the reasons I'm really busy and I'm really successful is that, my client's hair, it looks good today when they leave the salon. It looks good in 2 weeks. It looks good in a month. It looks good in 2 months. That's how you're gonna build a clientele. When clients' hair looks good for months at a time, they come back. The second thing is, They also are gonna get their friends to be like, wow, your hair looks great. It's been 2 months. Oh my God, my hair doesn't never look that good. So these are things that you want to, incorporate in your work, that, the less corrective stuff you gotta do, the better the work is gonna be and the more clients you're gonna end up building. So again, we're with our first one, we have, again, probably you have a lot of baby hairs here. So you might need to just kind of make a determination on, how many highlights, we're gonna do up front. But again, these are gonna be, first one's gonna be so thin, so see-through. I barely even wanna see this one, and it's the most delicate weave ever. That's what you're gonna do with the first one, okay? So we're gonna go in and do this one. Let me make sure I'm not missing any comments. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm here, I'm paying attention to the comments. All right, so first one's gonna be like I said, the whisper. We're gonna go in with 20. Okay, so we got this. So a lot of times, like I said, we do one, I just want one soft one. This is just gonna break up that hairline. I want it to be really delicate. Like on brunettes, I don't like a super, super strong from the root. It just looks really harsh. And I think for most people, it looks really harsh. So we got our first one, baby fine slice. Now the second one, this is the one that's gonna really, I think, be key. All right, so now we're gonna take, this time we're taking a slice. Okay, we're gonna take a really fine slice across. And this is like right behind that first section. So your first section might have been, like I said, if there's a lot of baby hairs, do 2. With most brunettes, 1 is enough. And what we're gonna do here with this slice is, oops, I'm actually working on this one. Oh, but that's fine. So what we're gonna do here is, well, let me actually just do it in this, but that's fine. Okay, so we're gonna take this one, and this time you are going to do a V shape starting from the root on a fine slice. So you want, again, this one should be pretty see-through. You want to make sure it's as see-through as possible. So let me put the one question: why don't you highlight right in the hairline? Is because of the baby hair? No, I do. So the first one is going to be, the first highlight is going to be right here, is going to be your very, very fine baby one. So most people have baby hairs. So that's why you're gonna you decide if you need 1 or 2 highlights in the beginning. But once you get the baby hairs out of the way and then it's the longer hair, this is where you're gonna do this piece right here. It's gonna be the V shape. Now, so one question is, when should I use high riser versus light master? So both of them are powerful. Both of them are gonna give you a lot of lift. Light master is gonna give you 8 levels of lift. Light master is gonna give you 9 levels of lift. So I would recommend the high riser for darker levels, when you're doing like a universal bleach out platinum, especially for darker levels. It's gonna get you there. If there's a lot of artificial color in the hair that you need to break through, then that's when I would go in with the high riser. But it's the 9 levels of lift. When you need 9 levels of lift, that's when you're gonna want to use the high riser. If you want power and strength, that's when you're gonna want to use the high riser. Plus, it's pre-bonded. So you're gonna get that power and that strength without worrying about compromising the integrity of the hair. Where with the regular light master, it is not pre-bonded. So it can be a little bit more aggressive on the hair as well. All right, so we got our next one here. And with this one, we are going to do a V shape. Okay, so we got a very fine slice here. And you're gonna go in, and this one we're going in with 40. And I want you to do it needs to be super tight on the top. Okay, and we're going to paint this one up really tight. Okay, and then we're going to do this V shape here. And let me see, I know I saw a couple of questions. Up to late levels is my favorite light master. That one's awesome. Is high riser only open air? No, those are 2 different lighteners. The open air is in the paint tub, and that one is more for like freehand painting. The texture is a little bit more like cake batter, but the high riser can also be used for freehand work as well. You're gonna get the direction of the brush when you paint has been a game changer for you. Thank you, Amy. Okay, I'm not sure what. Okay, but all right. So we're going here. We got our V shape. Now you see we did this one. Now this is gonna be a pretty strong. You're gonna get a pretty strong highlight with this V right here. And this is gonna be right behind the baby ones. So the first one or two highlights were gonna be super fine, delicate baby lights. Now you did a V-shaped slice that's all the way to the root. Okay, and then put another foil on top because we don't want any spots there. Okay, and now right behind this, so we're building on this. We're building this muddy piece. So the third one now, you're gonna take a little triangle on top, and we are going to backcomb this one into a fine slice. And it's, again, we want that slice to be sitting right on top of what we just did. So you can see right now what we've done is, we've done like a gradual build for this muddy piece. So you've got these delicate, barely there see-through ones on the very front. The next one is a V-shaped slice. The next one is a back-combed V-shape. So the three of these have been, really, they're building off of each other. So that's gonna give you a strong money piece, but you still have the delicateness of the root. That's the key to keeping these, soft. And then again, like not having to go in and do a major, correction with a shadow root after. Because like I said, a lot of the people that come into me for corrections on their money pieces, they probably looked fine when they left the salon, but it's usually when it's like a couple weeks later when the toners fade that they come in like, oh my God, I hate that person. Look at what they did to my hair. So you don't want to be that colorist. You don't want to be that colorist that gives somebody this like strong, crazy money piece that, because when you left your chair, it obviously didn't look like that. You put the toner in, but like I said, that toner is not going to last that long. Most toners are going to last about 20 shampoos. So, you want this to look good for months, to the point it looks so good that she comes back in for more. Like that's ultimately what you want these clients to do. You want all this to translate to more clients, repeat clients. That's how you get busy. You don't want just one shot, one time clients. So, all right, so we did, like I said, we built three of these on top of each other. And this way you're gonna get, that softness on the brunettes, okay? So we got our money, we did our whole face frame area now. So now we're gonna work on the rest. So like I said, we don't need a lot. So we got all this. I wanna keep this section because I should have worked on the other side, but you wanna see, we got a lot of contrast, a lot of dimension here. So when you're working on brunettes, you don't want, like I said, a ton of highlights. So we're taking the entire triangular section on the side of her head. And with this one, we're gonna take this entire section and we're gonna backcomb this one away. And you can see like with brunettes, it's less is more. We don't need tons and tons of highlights. A few strategic ones are gonna give the impact that they want. You keep the overall foundation of the hair dark, and that's the key. So one other great thing that's happening today is that today there's a huge sale at Salon Centric. You're gonna get 20% off on High Riser, as well as I think pretty much every other Matrix product right now. So make sure today, make your shopping day. If you haven't tried it, the power's there, you're gonna love it. If you already love Lightmaster, you're absolutely gonna love this. So make sure you guys don't miss out on this chance for 20% off. So, okay, so now we got this one. We got a V shape here going in again. And, another question I get a lot of times is, because you're only doing a few highlights, do you charge less money for it? Absolutely not. These are things that, for me, it's more about, I'm the artist. This is what is strategic and beautiful for you. So I charge my brunettes the same full highlight price that I would charge a blonde. For me, there's no difference. They still take up about the same amount of time. My blondes, obviously there's like a zillion foil highlight, which is, I typically don't do a lot of those, but, those maybe take a little bit longer, but still, I'm very strategic even with my blondes. I don't spend a ton of time in areas that we don't need. I like to have a lot of that dimension and contrast. So we got our next V shape, and you can see I took the whole side area of her hair for this foil, and I want to show you the other side just so you can see just how much impact just that one foil does. Here's that section right here. It's still strong. You see how powerful that is? It's like it's a big highlight. You're getting a great pop of color. Okay, so we got that one. Now on top, So we did it on the other side already, that little triangular piece. So now what you're gonna do is, I'm gonna take this little triangular piece out because we should have done it on this side. You're gonna take this one right here, and you're gonna take about, I'd say like an inch, inch and a half from their natural part. You wanna work on the client's natural part, especially for brunettes. If they don't have a natural part, tell them to pick one, because with brunettes, we need to be very strategic. We want negative space in there. So we're keeping this whole section up here. Like I said, we have about an inch. I'm gonna show that to you guys. So about an inch of the hair there, and you can see how much hair we've left behind. So let me just hold on to this. So all this is gonna be your negative space. You want all this darkness in there. So if you want to do like a baby little highlight on the very end, that's all I would do, but you don't really need more. But you can see just with literally 3 highlights on the side, how much impact and how much pop we got on a brunette. And this isn't even toned. You know, if you want to do it with a toner, you know, with my brunettes, you know, I love the acidics. Those are, you know, really sheer. Think of them almost like pantyhose. They don't have lift. They're going to give you a beautiful dimensional color. You know, for my darker levels, especially if they do get stuck on a brassier tone, there's great ashes. There's the double ashes, the 8AA, especially if I do a lot of open air freehand work, because then you end up having a lot more like reddish undertones. The 8AA acidic is awesome. It kills any of that unwanted orange, but it doesn't turn greeny gray, especially unless your hair is already yellow. If you're at yellow, you're gonna go great. But you know, I think typically with those, you know, they're really great complements. Now, okay, so we got this one on our part, and now we are going to just again do a horizontal slice on that one. Keep it pretty fine, and we're gonna do a V shape on that. Okay. Yep, somebody just had a really great comment. I have a sign in my salon that says, to see light, you need dark, which is absolutely true. I think, you know, for blondes and brunettes, having that contrast actually makes the blonde pop even more. I also find that it looks more modern. It's more artistic. I think, and also it's smarter work for you. You know, you want that stuff. It helps you in 2 ways. Number one, it helps you because the color overall looks better. It helps the client because you're not bleaching every single strand on her head. But ultimately, it just makes your day faster. You know, why spend tons of time on something that's not going to give you a better result? It's not like more highlights suddenly makes it look better, and especially when you're doing dark hair. I feel like less is more. And you know, I think you have to remind brunettes, because I think what happens is like they start getting highlights, people start complimenting them on how good they are, how good their hair looks, and then they want more and more and more. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know, one solid mass of like brassy blonde hair, which it doesn't really work on brunettes. You want it to be more strategic. And again, like I said, with most of my brunettes, I think the ones that look most sophisticated is when it's a tone on tone. Like if you got like a level 4, level 5 hair, yes, you could have a level 10 highlight. Is that going to probably be, you know, the most subtle? No, it's a strong look, and that's fine. But I think it looks softer when you drop it down to like an 8 or a 9. Even like if you're using the full coverage color sinks, if you put it on dark hair, even a level 10 on a dark hair, it brings it down enough, especially if you leave it on for like 10, 15 minutes. You know, let it process, let it do its thing. It's gonna give you guys, you know, a great, beautiful finish. So, all right, so now we got this one here. So you see we moved really quickly. You know, in the salon, this kind of technique where we're just kind of focusing on the face frame, you know, nape and crown, and all the back combing, you could get this in like 30 minutes. So imagine how many clients you could do in a day if you really master these strategic techniques that are really fast, really efficient, but also give a really beautiful end result. And if you guys haven't had a chance to try it, today's a great day to go to Salon Centric, 20% off on the Matrix High Riser. It's so powerful, and we're having a great experience with it at the salon. It's people, you know, I know Matrix is really pushing it for universal blonding for platinums, and it's great. If you guys do a lot of platinums, this is going to be your new favorite. I've done a lot of them on my Instagram if you guys want to check on what a beautiful, clean, blonde finish it gives. It's honestly like a game changer. We need these in the salon. Thank you, Matrix, for giving us these tools. to make us better artists. But on top of it, you're gonna get 20% off on it, so it gives you a great chance to use it. So if you're using it for universal, there's a few things that just little tips with the universal blonding that I found. Also, don't use any heat. If you're doing a bleach out, full bleach out, never use heat, especially on the scalp. I've seen people do this on Instagram and it terrifies me for these poor scalps. The second thing is, do not use 40 volume on the scalp, even on dark hair. I use 20 volume, the heat activates it, and you don't need that extra developer on the scalp. You're really just gonna burn the client. They're not gonna be able to sit long enough for it to process. So do that, with 20, but from the mids and ends, from half an inch off the scalp, especially in dark hair, yes, go in with 40. Don't be afraid on the 40 when you're staying off scalp. That's when you're gonna need that extra power, that extra lift, especially for darker hair. I know people get afraid using 40, but trust me, they're tools that we have and there's a reason for them. You need those powerful developers to get through all that pigment. So once you do a universal bleach out and you're bleaching it out, once it gets to yellow, that's when I want you to go in, and that's when you do your scalp retouch. And you let it all process at the same time. So I found with this one, I've done a couple bleach outs and I've gotten them in and out in about 2.5 hours, which has been kind of shocking to go from, really dark hair to light. But it's because it's so strong, that 9 levels of lift, especially when you're dealing with virgin hair, it comes up really, really nice. And it gives you a clean finish. I think that's the most important part when you're bleaching, is that